Hey, it's Jason from Pro Guitar Studio. Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at something that will help you break outside of your scale patterns and try to give you something with a little more melody and life, but also something you can integrate with your scales as well. So in the improvised section you heard just a moment ago, I did integrate this thing we're going to talk about with scales just to show you how it would work as well. Now, what we're talking about today is something called sixth intervals. Now, all that means in the layman's terms is going to be the notes are 6 notes apart in the major scale. So as an example, if we're doing C major, because it's nice and easy to understand, C major scale. Starting on the C note, we have number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back at 1 again. So when we're going from the first note to the second note, that's called a second interval. First note to the third note, 1, 2, 3. First note to the third note is a third. First note to the fourth is a fourth interval. First note to the fifth is a fifth, otherwise known as a power chord or a C5 chord there. And first note to the sixth note, a sixth interval. Now, this way we're going to do this here is we're going to actually make it function like what we'll call a third interval. So if you've done this kind of stuff before and you understand theory, we're making this function like a third, but an inverted third. But if you don't know what I'm talking about there, just ignore that. Let's just dive right in and actually talk about how we're going to play through this. Okay, so we're going to play here. The two chords I'm playing in the background are D major and F sharp minor. So you could think of that as from D major, we have chord number 1 and chord 3. But I'm playing here like I'm thinking of it as F sharp minor. Okay, so I'm thinking of the chords coming from F sharp minor. So we're using the F sharp minor scale, otherwise known as or we can also call it the A major scale if you want to think of it that way. But the F sharp minor is the way I'm thinking of it, just because the chords relate to me better that way. This is the way the slight changes in terms of key signature and the intervals involved. So one of the notes will be changed. So F sharp minor versus D major, we have one note difference there, one additional sharp. But just to go through this here, we'll just talk about the 6 interval sound, okay? Now, I'm doing this on string number 2 and 4 because I think it's the easiest to play through. I like the sounds and they're not too far apart in terms of the finger stretches we have to do. The first note I'm going to play is 7th fret string number 4 and 7th fret string number 2. And I'm basically going 4, 2, 4. Now, at the start there, I use my pick, but you can use your fingers too. All right, so when I'm using my pick, I'm going down, up, down, and I'm doing that pattern all the way through. So if you find it easier with your finger, go for it, okay? So I'm starting from 7 and 7, then I'm going to 9 and 8, then 11 and 10, back down to 9 and 8, 7 and 7, 6 and 5, and then we're going to 4 and 3. And here I'm going to go string 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2. So to change the pattern a bit there. So like then. Let me make sure I get the right amount of repetitions at the end there. Oh. So I said too many times there. I'm going 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2. There we go. So. Okay. And like I said, these notes are 6 notes apart. So if you look at the names, this is A, this is F sharp. If you think of the note names, A, B, C, D, E, F, even though it's F sharp, but we're thinking of the amount of letters that we're going between there, it's 6. We're counting 6 letters, including the first note and last note. So A, B, C, D, E, F. Sorry, all my fingers there. So 6 notes total. And I should probably count that a little better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But yeah, we have 6 notes or 6 interval. And so everything I'm doing here are 6 notes apart in the major scale. Now, when I said I was using this as like an inverted third interval, in the major or minor scale, let's say we're doing the F sharp note and going to A on top. That's usually the way you hear things harmonized, right? So your melody note and your harmony note on top. So I'm taking those and just taking the top note, putting it on the bottom. And I'm not expecting you to know how to do that. I'm just explaining the theory behind it. So as you play with these shapes here, if you're playing in the key of A major, F sharp minor, oh, keep messing that one up. Those all work really nicely, okay? And it breaks you out of just playing with a scale because now you have these two notes together. So you can use, like I said, your fingers. You can play them separate with your fingers. You can use a pick. Or you can even cross pick. Pick and then your middle finger. So that's for our D major chord. Now the second part of it is going to be on 11 and 10, 12 and 12, 14 and 14, back down, 12 and 12, 11 and 10, 9 and 9, 11 and 10 with that extended pattern, so 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2. All right, so from the beginning, I had this. And then all right, so those parts repeat. And the improvised solo part, I just combine the scale of F sharp minor with those 6 intervals. Now, finger-wise, if you're playing through this, my suggestion is to keep your middle finger on top if you can, just to try to keep it one way. And then swap out your ring. If we're on the same fret, we're gonna use our ring on the second string. But if we're 1 fret apart, you're gonna use your index finger on the second string. You can do it different ways, but I think this is nice and consistent to start, okay? So just to give you a rule to play with. All right, so as you look through this or as you play through these, if you look up a backing track in the key of A major, go to YouTube, try to find a backing track there, all these notes will work. So starting on the second fret, 'cause that's where the lowest note that I played was, 2 and 2, 4 and 3, 6 and 5, 7 and 7, 9 and 7, 11 and 10, 12 and 12, 14 and 14. And if you look at it in a visual way, our A major chord is 2 and 2. Our B minor chord is 4 and 3. Just to give you a nice way to think about this. C sharp minor, which is the next chord, is 6 and 5. D, 7 and 7. E, 9 and 9. F sharp minor, 11 and 10. The diminished chord, so in this case here, we have our G sharp diminished, which you may or may not play with. That's 12 and 12. And then we have back to A, which is 14 and 14, okay? And the relative minor to that is F sharp minor, which is the way I'm thinking of this here, okay? So as you dig into this, the most important thing when you're playing through it is when you try to sit on a note that those notes are in the chord. If they're not in the chord, it will sound off. And that's sort of the hard thing to sort of figure out. But if you use your ears and play through the same backing track over and over, eventually, even without thinking about it too much, as long as you use your ear and try to find it, you will find those notes that are in the chord. You just have to practice trying to hear which notes sound good and which ones sound a little bit dissonant, okay? So if it sounds dissonant, if it sounds like it clashes, then those notes probably aren't in the chord. If it sounds really nice and it measures up with it, matches up with the chord, then you're probably playing chord tones. And really, we only have 2 sets of chord tones for each chord. So for like the D chord, when we're looking at this here, the 4 and 3 is in the D chord, F sharp and D, and then the 9 and 9, 7 and 7. In this case here, we have an A and an F sharp. And then for the F sharp minor, as we go further up here, we have 11 and 10 as part of your bar chord. And if we go further down, 7 and 7. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you have questions about what I'm talking about here, please let me know in the comments below. I don't like to get too far into the theory. I don't want to confuse anyone, but I'd love to take this discussion further if you have questions about intervals, how these work, how I'm using it as an inverted third, etc. So enjoy. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like this each week. See you soon.